Hey everyone, this is Dan Ritterman with another episode of The Tenant Side presented by Tactics Real Estate Advisors. On the show, we're talking to people who are involved in the industry, talking about how we're dealing with the coronavirus pandemic as we go through this post-coronavirus pandemic and sort of what's going on. So today I have with me Eric Roseman. He's the Vice President of Innovation and Technology Ventures at Lincoln Property Capital. Really excited to have him on the show. Eric, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Yeah, this is super interesting. What a crazy time we're in right now.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, so I'm Vice President of Technology and Innovation at Lincoln Property Company. We're a nationwide real estate owner, operator, developer. We manage about 200 million square feet of office assets across the United States. Vertically integrated, so we're developer, construction manager, leasing professionals, landlord. And so we get a good swath of exposure to different parts of the business. And so I joined about a year and a half ago, really to look at the business in a new way, future-proof our buildings, understand what technology companies are doing differently and how they occupy space, and just try to really future-proof us so that, Lincoln Property Company is seen as one of the more forward-thinking developers in the country.
And that's one of the reasons I was really excited to talk to you because future-proofing a building, I think, means something different today than we thought it probably meant, as recently as 4 or 5 months ago. So as we're returning to work and people are thinking about going back to their offices, what are some things that landlords are thinking about how they can prepare their buildings for the future?
Yeah, right. It's interesting because it almost goes back to like the lead conversation from the last cycle or the last decade, right? It was, you had this corporate sustainability mandate that required companies to really go to the most forward, energy perspective building. And so, you had LEED Gold, you LEED Platinum, and where we're at in like the code, you can just build a building now and like without a doubt, the baseline it's LEED Silver. And so it kind of became table stakes that your building was greenified, if you will. Now we're in this interesting environment where I guess, 4 months ago, it was an amenities arms race. It was like, does it have a fitness center? Does it have a common area? Does it have a rooftop? And now we're starting to hear from, some of our largest tenant reps on the West Coast who are advising these massive TAMI tenants that it's all about building health requirements now. And it's all about how healthy is your building going to be for their employees. And we don't know if that's going to be WELL certification or FitWell, which is the certification that's going to win out. But what we're trying to do at Lincoln is make sure in our existing assets that we make incremental changes, both operationally, like, signage and PP&E and all that kind of stuff, but also small changes from a user experience perspective with technology, which I'll get into. And then on the new development side, where we have a runway and we're in this window of lease up, it's really imperative that we start to spec some of that capital to do things like destination dispatch and mobile access control, so you never touch surfaces from sidewalk to seat, right? So, on the sort of Class B, Class A minus side of our office assets, where there's not massive budgets, capital projects have sort of been put on pause. It's sort of little incremental changes, putting sensors in the building, making sure that common areas are showing when space was used and how it was used and whether janitorial came in to clean afterwards. And then also using just like access control upgrades so that people, who's walking into the building. There's a world where that might attach to things like contact tracing. And so sort of getting into that ecosystem. And then on the new development side, we're going, full throttle where it's, straight from sidewalk up to seat, doing mobile access control with OpenPath, which we struck a partnership with back in February. Well timed on our part, I think.
Very well timed.
To do mobile access. Looping that into the destination dispatch so you can say, hey, take me to the 10th floor right from your phone. And then being able to use, occupancy sensors all over the floor plate and just all the modern technology. And then things like, VRF systems and being able to use MERV filtration for fresh air inflow. We're putting in more operable windows to allow more outside air in. So we're just, we're looking at our projects and almost playing doctor to the patient and saying do we do the full, the full surgery, or do we just do sort of preventative type medicine on our buildings?
Yeah, that was a great analogy, I think, to compare it to sort of the arms race and the amenity suites that buildings have sort of been working on, where it was, right, that it became a standard that your building had to have a gym and had to have this common conference room. And tenants came to expect that. And if you didn't, there was sort of a strike against you. So it became the thing that you had to do as a bare minimum. And then companies started building on top of that to attract some of these top tier tenants. So I think you're right. We'll see that in the building preparedness section also. And we've been telling our tenants exactly what you were just saying. we need to ask the landlords what they're planning on doing to ensure their safety to get them into the suite once they get to the building. So that'll be interesting. What are some of the interesting technological solutions that you've seen come up?
Yeah, I would say one thing that's really interesting in sort of the amenity arms race before was tenant engagement software. So you have companies like HQO out of Boston and Lane in Toronto and Equium, which is an Australian company, that try to engage a multi-tenant office building, right? So if you're a landlord like us and you have 200,000 feet and more and multi-tenant, interesting sort of mix of rent roll, you wanted to use, and you had some offerings like retail on the ground floor, and you had fitness, whatever. You need more than just an office building. We really recommended using tenant engagement software, right? So you can send out messages being like, hey, there's a new elevator protocol right now because of COVID. Just check the app. Or, hey, we're trying to be a forward-thinking landlord. Here's, a free code for a Peloton 90-day subscription so you can work out at home because you can't use the fitness center at the office. And we think that, we're doing that in Orange County at our brand new, creative office campus called Tustin, Flight at Tustin, 600,000 feet. It's got a mess hall, fitness, everything. Like, that was a no-brainer for us. And it allowed us to like engage with our tenants while they were on their couch. So we think that's really important. We think this, the whole mobile access control thing, it just sort of took off. Like, there was a tsunami of demand there, especially in the early days of COVID when people thought virus transmission was going to come from more surface touching.
Right.
And I think we're still mixed about what your level of exposure is there. But nonetheless, like, the fact is, this phone is your identity for everything. How is it not your identity for your building? Right.
Well, think about how we equip our homes these days, where my phone controls my thermostat, my lights, it controls my Apple TV. I mean, my phone controls everything. I take it to the office, and there really is not a whole lot of interconnectivity between those two devices currently at the office building. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing we heard from a lot of tenants was this concern about, like, what is the air filtrate, like, what's the air quality in the building? What is the humidity level? Because there was concerns about humidity having a play. And so we're starting to see more interest in these like intelligent building management systems that bring to light everything that's going on. Like, what's the water flow in the building? How's the energy matching the occupancy? And so at Lincoln, we made an investment in a company called Gridium software out of Palo Alto. And it really helps our buildings basically shave off peak demand and match occupancy, right? So in a moment like now where rents might not be rising 3% like we thought we were going to underwrite, a dollar saved is a dollar earned. And so by employing things like Gridium, which is a super simple solution that just shaves off that peak demand and reduces those costs, we can start to hit some of those returns that we were underwriting in sort of a cost savings manner. So this is a really interesting time because as a technologist in the space, I had been preaching, being like, this stuff is coming, expecting it to play out over a decade. And then, and a lot of it was sort of like rents going up, we'll sweep it under the rug. And now COVID hits and it's like, okay, we need to pay attention immediately.
Yeah, that's something that we've talked about on this show before, where a lot of the things that we're really seeing are trends that were already in motion that have just been accelerated. Like you said, you expected to see this change over the next 10 years. You may see that in 12 months because necessity drives that, right? And the same thing with remote work, where we may have gotten to this point with remote work 10 years from now. It wasn't going to happen immediately, but now it has to. So we've seen that trend accelerated also. On the tenant side of things, what are some steps that you're seeing some of your larger tenants take inside their suite as a result of this as they head back to the office?
Yeah, so I think everybody is hesitant to make big capital decisions in a moment of crisis, right? It's a very much a let's monitor, let's wait, let's make incremental changes, and then we'll reevaluate in 3 months, 6 months. So we're seeing different approaches, right? Some tenants that we work with have produced like 100-page documents that are like, full novels on how to reoccupy space, all the way down to like, how does a barista hand them a coffee, right? And some of these tenants are like large tech companies that have their own campuses, so they need to think through that. Other tenants that we work with, are more focused on like, how do we roll back and bring back, call it 20% and 30% of our people, and we got to make it needs based, right? So some people obviously have young kids at home, they can't really focus. So we want to be able to, like yourself, we want to be able to like bring those people back based on necessity. And if the 70% are working, even 90% is productive, like they'll come back in a later stage. So we're seeing mostly like rational decisions around how do we bring people back based on who needs to come back. some groups are saying, hey, we're not going to come back till 2021. And they're sticking with that plan. And then other groups have said, we're not coming back till 2021. And then they rolled it back and said, okay, it looks like the world's kind of reopening. We'll start coming back.
Right.
We're starting to see some architects getting engaged, being like, hey, we want to, change up the layout. We're at, 150 square feet per person. Maybe we go to 200. So we're seeing some mock-ups and test fits being generated. We're seeing some furniture orders being placed, but mostly it's triage. It's like plexiglass, dividers, distance stickers, keeping people away, that kind of stuff.
That makes a lot of sense to me too. And we're advising clients to take similar steps. There's going to be presumably a post-COVID era, which we will get to at some point, whether it's 1.5 to 2.5 years out. And the truth is that most of us will spend the majority of our future time at offices in that post-COVID era. So let's not overcorrect for the 18 months while still taking reasonable necessary steps, like you were saying, to sort of keep everybody safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eric, thanks so much for joining me. This was fantastic. I really appreciate it. Stay safe out there. We'll have to have you back in a couple of weeks and see how it goes.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dan. Take care.